morning. My name is Caroline Sanders. I am Commissioner for District 4, which is all of Pittsfield Township, and I believe Precinct 1 in Ypsilanti Township, so about 10% of Ypsilanti Township. And I am here today, excited to bring to you, we've got new team members, but not really new team members. Our new supervisor for Pittsfield Township, Trish Reilly, is not new to many of us. She's not new to me, but she is new to the township in her role, the current role. She's been at the township before. And then we also have team members from our public safety, our police department, and our fire department. And so I'm happy to bring all three of them to the constituents who may have not met you yet or may want to know more about who you are, what you're doing, what your plans are for our lovely township. So having said all that, I'm going to turn this over to Trish. And Trish, take it away.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And yeah, I'm like a bad penny that keeps popping back up. I was at the township about 9 years ago as deputy supervisor. And after that, I went over to the county where I was 9 years, helping to run elections over in the clerk's office, and got to work with many people and built a very good relationship with Commissioner Sanders back and forth. So happy to be here and have you advocating for us, because I know how strong you are on all of that. Before that, I was at the chamber and it's been around for a long time, been in the community for 28 years. But happy to be working with my new colleagues. I'm here with our police chief, Patrick Gray, and our chief of fire, Dave Heavener. And one of the first things when I came on board here on November 20th was to let us know that, hey, you have a millage that's actually two millages that will be expiring at the end of 25. So we need to get on it. And, coming from the elections world, my thought was, oh gosh, it'd be so much better to do it in an even year, when you're getting the bigger, because everybody wants to come out, for the governor, or for the president, which is mind-boggling in some ways, because yes, they're very important, obviously, but the proposals and the odd year and the local elections are the ones that affect everyone's day to day, their secure local funding. So I really hope that with the new laws that people do come out more and vote and get their voices heard, because it's really important. But it is what it is. We have to get the millages on the ballot this year. So, we have three options. It's going to be May, August, or November. And we chose May. We did reach out to the county because they do an inventory in the beginning of the year to say, hey, who's going to put something on the ballot? And it is better if there's a countywide ballot to hop on board. It's, cheaper and you get a better attendance, but nothing is planned, at least countywide, for the rest of the year. May makes more sense for us because we can find out, well, probably 3 weeks from yesterday, whether or not we'll have the funding or not for budgeting purposes. So we know going forward what we're dealing with. What the people speak, we'll plan accordingly, but we need to know what it's going to be. And then, in all truth, if it doesn't go through, we will have November to come back with a straight up renewal if need be. But
So Trish, there are
yes,
two millages. Tell us what
there
the two
are.
are.
Yes. So there is a parks millage, and that is actually, it's a renewal, but an increase. It'll be increased by 0.13. And then there is a public safety millage, and they're both for 10 years. And the public safety millage is going up by a mill for 10 years. And that's what the request is. And I will explain that, and obviously let both chiefs explain that part of it. When I got on board, we have a director of finance here who has been here 33 years. And when she showed the numbers and the costs increase and other challenges we've been through, and many people will know that the public safety building that's being renovated next door to our administrative building, we had $2.5 million allocated from the federal government for it. But when it got kind of passed as bare bones on March 14th, that it got eliminated because it was under community funds. So we got a little more in the hole. We have, definitely some needs going on here. So it's imperative that we get it on. And to your point, It could have been, we could have broken up these two millages to different ballots. And that's kind of playing games with people a little bit. You know, you'd be like, oh, because it's unlikely for both to pass. So do one time and one later. But we want to be truly transparent with people. This is what we're asking for the year. This is what we want you to budget for. Can you do it? And just to give you just some, overall numbers, I don't like to do the average cost of what it will cost a person because I feel like, especially in Pittsfield, it's such a variance. So just before if you have a taxable value home of about $122,000, you're already paying about $418.19 for the millages put together, the public safety and the parks. If it gets approved as presented, you'll pay $122.39 more for public safety and $15.91 more for parks a year.
Okay.
So that gives you an idea. So it's a decrease for sure, but probably like dinner out kind of thing, the way prices are going right now. But if you're on the higher end and you have a taxable value home of 346,849, that kind of range, then you're going to be looking at an increase of $346.85 for public safety and $45.09 for parks. So that kind of gives people an idea. I feel like when you average those out together, it really doesn't give you an idea. On our website, if you go to pittsfield-mi.gov, there's a calculator. You put in your address, and that will bring up exactly what it's going to cost for you, what you're paying now, and what the increase will be. Because I feel like that's more important and pertinent to people. The increase overall, you're currently paying 2.95 mils for public safety, so it'd be 3.95. And then for parks, you're currently paying 4.8 something, I think it is, and then with the 0.3 after, it'll be 0.6.
Okay.
So that kind of gives you an overview of what we're kind of looking to do. So again, if it doesn't pass, we'll listen to what people speak and we'll come back in November. But we're hoping, and I'm hoping that people are coming out to the forum. We're doing a virtual forum tonight. We've done 3 previously. We've recorded the sessions so we can go out and listen to them. We on our website have a bunch of information. And, the one thing to know is that we are one of the townships that provides excellent service. Not every township has its own police and fire. The parks were well known for that. But we do remain at the lower end of the taxes, the millages. So we're going to be, and we will be at the lower end of that, even if this goes through. We are the second largest township next to Ypsilanti Township. We have about approximately 40,000 people. Again, we're, one of the few communities that does have our own public safety department, which, we've come to just kind of rely on that and not realize how important it is. And I know the chiefs will both tell you this. We are been working with under the national average for officers and firefighters per capita, but our response rates have been better than average. So, we've been really, every time there's a grant to be had or, some sort of mutual aid or other authority we can join or things we can do, we're looking to do it and we do it. But at this point, the amount of costs that are going up, and again, they'll talk to you about the price of a bulletproof vest or a fire engine has gone up. We're not talking 10%, we're not talking 20%. In some cases, like 100% increase in costs. In order for us to be able to keep this community safe, we have to ask for the ask. And when the director of finance for 33 years shows you the numbers and says, in order to even just keep the services that you have right now, you have to ask for this millage.
Well, I will just weigh in for the purposes of sort of eyewitnessing. When my first term, I reached out to public safety and I was gifted a ride along, which actually lasted a bit longer than it was supposed to. Had some excitement at the end of the ride along. And when I did the walkthrough of the actual space that fire and the police were sharing together, I'm going to just be honest and say I was appalled. I could not believe what they were working with or not working with, based on the size of our community. And to some degree, I don't want to say affluence, but the um, the level of resources that our residents, have access to. And from that point, I really did start to have conversations with the county about how, what can we do to make an improvement here. Um, I think I was surprised because on the surface, when you walk into the building, it looks great. But then you go behind the scenes and you're like, when's the last time you had a paint job? Or is this the holding space for someone that I mean, it wasn't a holding space. It was just an open space. Um, and I say this, my ex-husband was a police officer, so I'm not new to supporting police and fire and understanding from a more personal level what it takes in order to do those jobs, and the resources that are needed in order for them to do the jobs safely for themselves and for the residents. And at the end of the day, when you are in trouble, you call 911 and you expect them to show up. And I have been a recipient of a response from our public safety a couple of times, based on my home alarm going off. And when I tell you they were here and they did a walkthrough of my property, I've not received. I mean, that's one of the reasons that I came back to Pittsfield Township. I've lived here twice. And so I've told anybody that will listen to me, this is not a frivolous ask. It's not a frivolous ask. It's like somebody saying, I need a new furnace, and you saying, well, I don't know. This is a necessity. And so I'm encouraging people to vote yes. And I think I'm super excited that you did do these 4 informational sessions. The last one is coming up. And I've popped in on 2 of them, and I found that they were chock full of information, and that's what people need. They need transparency, truth, so that they can understand, we're not just trying to get extra money out of you. Things
We
cost
want to
and
give you the
costs
information
increase.
so
Correct.
you can have, because it is, it's increase for your household. So we want you
Absolutely.
to really research this, and an informed voter is our better voter.
Exactly. So, okay, I'm off of my soapbox. I just wanted to add that little personal piece in there. I support it, and I'm not ashamed to defend it to any of my constituents in Pittsfield Township at
Yeah,
all.
and we are absolutely, you can obviously go to the website, call us, and I know the chiefs will be willing to talk to anyone. We'll give you the facts, so
Yes,
you're making an informed decision. Obviously it's up to the voters, but we're here to provide the information for you.
absolutely. So, Trish, do you want to invite your team, the rest of your team, to
I
tell us who
do.
they are? What are they doing? I don't know if they have like a future vision or.
Yeah, I'm going to throw it over to first the chief of police, and have him kind of start us off and give us sort of a background on what's going on, and how things are looking over at the police department.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you so much. I've been with the Pittsfield Township Police Department for over 20 years. And so working in Pittsfield Township, working with the residents, working with the police department and the fire department, for that length of time, I can tell you that there's just been a great deal of change and a great deal of growth within the township. So when you speak to, kind of seeing the front facade of the department, but then stepping back, we're operating out of a building that I believe was first housing fire back in the late 60s and early 70s. And so we've grown, the building has grown throughout all this time as the agencies have grown with the township. And we continue to deliver the service that you experienced, and to the level that you experienced, and we take it very seriously, in spite of some of those circumstances that you walked through and saw. Using areas for multi-purposes that really isn't the norm. That's the way we've operated for a long time. And so that's one of the big projects that we're working on right now. Obviously, you see it happening out here on Michigan Avenue. That's one of the big things that's happening. But while that project is going, obviously we're still delivering all these services, and sometimes people don't really know the full scope of the services that are provided. If they are fortunate enough to not ever have to call for help, that's great. But then sometimes it's just a matter of perspective. They don't really know how much work's really being done. And so with these forums, we've been trying to let people know the size of their Department of Public Safety. And I can speak to that. I don't want to just rattle off a bunch of numbers, but just to understand that there's 43 members of the police department. That's breaking down all the way from administration through investigations and patrol. 43 staff and police. There's 23 staff or 24, 28 staff members from the fire department. And that's, again, from the fire chief to firefighters and fire suppression workers. And then we also have 8 civilian staff members too, with records department. So the whole Department of Public Safety is made up of these three core groups. And I think that, like I said, if nobody's needed to call us or they haven't had a cause to visit us, they don't really know the size of the operation. And we need to show that perspective because we are asking for something different. And if people haven't needed the services, understanding that they were still there for the day that they did need them, and that they were prepared for the day that unfortunately they may need some help, is really important, just to kind of show that perspective when you're doing a millage like this. Is, the main 2 questions are from a resident, understandably, is, okay, how much is this going to cost, and what is this for? And so kind of just getting into the size of the agencies is important, explaining that. Also, understanding the level of work or the amount of work that's done, and then the quality of work that's done. So the police department in 2024 responded to over 17,000 calls for service. And some of those were, major events, robberies or assaults and things like that, unfortunately. But then there were a lot of smaller events too, just helping people with quality of life matters in their neighborhood or in their home. Small things as simple as, my daughter won't get up for school, and they will call the police department for that. And we'll help families work through problems. That's part of what we do. Or for neighbors being too loud or their dog is barking, we help people work through those problems, and it's a big deal to them. And we take that very seriously. That's a quality of life issue for them. And we're going to provide that service. And then, like I said, all the way up to the more major events that you think of that the police department would respond on. And I can speak for the fire department. They responded on over 3,500 calls for service for fires, for fire-related calls. Not all fires, but again, helping people with their, big to small. Sometimes it was a fire, sometimes it was a major medical, somebody needed emergency assistance. And then other times, maybe somebody needed a little bit of help putting their smoke alarm up. We consider that, it's a big deal to them. And obviously, that could have a larger impact too if that smoke alarm's not working. So we're more than happy to provide that service too. And getting into the speed of that service, I'm just really proud to say that the police department has an average response time of under 4 minutes, which is in line with and actually a little bit better than national standards. And the fire department responds in under 8 minutes. Much bigger equipment. Obviously, the whole crew has to load in. Maybe they have to move gear from one truck to another, but that number is actually really, really good too. That's within national standards as well. So the cornerstone of our mission is to protect life and property. This is like the jet, but really, if you look at the work that we do every day, we're looking to maintain quality of life for the residents and be there for them, for big and small. Those are the main driving factors behind what we do and why.
Chief Gray, I'm going to ask you to speak just a little bit to mutual aid, because it's not a term that all of our residents are familiar with. It's sort of like an inside term. And I just want you to kind of share what that means and illuminate it for our constituents, because a lot of people may say, well, I don't care about other areas. I don't care about, safety outside of Pittsfield Township. But I'd like for you to talk about it so that our constituents understand it's just what it says. It's mutual aid. If we have an emergency that we can't take care of alone,
Right.
what
Right.
happens and vice versa. And that
That's
is part of this,
it is.
it's part of being prepared
Right.
and the reason why we need a renewal.
Yep, you really, this is, again, this is just one of those factors that people don't know about unless they're involved in it. But the fact is that for the police department, we staff our shifts properly for the types of calls that we would expect to come in, and understanding that an event could occur that is large enough that the number of police officers that we have on isn't sufficient, and we can't just magically make them appear from home when those kinds of things happen. Sometimes we can predict something, and of course we get out in front of that, right? But other times an event occurs and we do need some assistance. And there are times where something will occur in the city of Saline or in Ypsilanti Township, Ann Arbor, just the same, that they need some assistance. And so we do have agreements with all surrounding agencies to provide assistance when something like that really kicks off. A really good example of that was really police and fire was when we had a major fire and massive explosions over at Ann Arbor Welding. And this was just an event that occurred. You couldn't have predicted that this was going to happen, but it was the size of it, the scale of that event was way too big for any one agency, any one of our surrounding agencies, and certainly Pittsfield, to handle on their own. Having those relationships with the neighboring police departments and fire departments to assist with evacuations or firefighting is crucial. And so us being able to take care of our own, of course, is very important, but maintaining those relationships is really, we can't expect every agency to operate without some help. And then there are times where we're going to call them for help too.
I literally remember that. I lived 5 blocks at that time from that.
And we received help from a ton of other agencies. I think that was like an all hands on deck situation. We were doing mass evacuations of the neighborhood nearby. It's one of those kind of events that you can plan for it in that you have mutual aid agreements, and you can plan for it in that you are prepared to, pull on and request that assistance. But you can never know when something like that's going to happen. You can't staff for that internally. So, and we do the same thing. I mean, we are assisting our neighbors on a regular basis. And some of those events that happen where you'll hear maybe from some of your constituents that they're not really concerned with something that happened, let's say in the city of Saline or Ypsilanti Township, those incidents and those matters do spill into this township, and they do affect the residents of this township. So not having that relationship and us not stepping in to help, we're not just helping that community, we're helping ours by addressing that with the other agency.
Right. Because if I just run through my mind, we abut to Saline, Ann Arbor, Ypsilanti Township. Is it York Township?
York, yeah.
Correct. York. On the
So
south.
we're kind of like an island right in the middle of all of these other municipalities, and our borders touch. And I think that makes us unique to some of the other municipalities that, are only touching like 1 or 2 other sort of neighboring communities.
Right.
So I guess I want to just ask you if you would give us just a piece of your presentation that you're doing at these information sessions in terms of the type of needs that you're going to have equipment wise that this millage would cover in the immediate future. I mean, I think you talked about vests at the last session that I was at, how expensive those are. That's stuff that unless you're married to a police officer or you work for the department, you have no idea how much that stuff costs.
Right. And I know the supervisor spoke about that briefly already. The cost for some of those specific items that are kind of custom made for the work that we do, both police and fire, those ones are the ones that we've really seen the sharpest rise in inflated costs over the last 5 years. And so I can just give just a forecast. The special equipment that we are forecasting over the next 10 years include those ballistic vests. Ballistic vests need to be replaced every 5 years. And so it's an expensive piece of very important equipment that we really can't neglect. We do those replacements, but we do put in for and receive grant funds to assist us with that. We cannot 100% rely on continuing to receive that. So over the next 10 years, we fully expect to replace everybody's vest within the police department, as an example, twice. This is in a 10-year millage, and so we're trying to forecast and budget for that. And the body cameras is another piece of equipment that is not normal in other industries, but it is very normal and it is required, and we must have it in police work. And for a lot of reasons, but it's an expensive piece of equipment that we must have and must be working. We do not allow officers to work the road or have any contact with anybody without having their body cam activated. So it's
and just on that point, those body cams, regardless of what people's personal opinions are, they help tremendously in reducing lawsuits, frivolous lawsuits, and helping to actually show what is occurring on a traffic stop or what is occurring in a response situation.
absolutely. And there's a level of transparency that they provide that's I think that when they were first introduced, you had different camps, you had different people believing different things. And I think that within the first week or two of our police department, just our experience within the first week or two of us having body cams, we were repeatedly finding just what you said, that if there was a complaint or a dispute or there was an issue, we were able to immediately show what the context was and what the officer did, and were they operating within policy? Were they treating people with dignity and respect? We were able to maintain a certain level of accountability within our department that was not possible before. And I'm happy to say that we saw good things, but there was definitely the opportunity where if we were to observe something that was not so good, we would be able to account for it. We would be able to take care of it when we didn't have that previously. So I'm glad to say that it turned into something very positive for us, even though there were different opinions. It was very positive for us. And again, that's a very expensive piece of equipment. They don't last forever. And we're looking at a replacement during this next 10 years, at least one replacement. But I think with the new developments in body cams, those batteries might last a little bit longer. We're going to get as much time out of that equipment as we can. But we're going to make sure that it's working. That's not something that we can let go. And then there's a lot of equipment for our fleet that is required, radars, forensic tools, and just the fleet itself is another very expensive thing. And getting our hands on vehicles was very difficult over the last 5 years. And so I think, supply and demand, we saw a rise in the cost of buying a patrol vehicle or an administrative vehicle. So, and then outfitting those vehicles, it's specialty equipment. So tasers are another really, really important piece of police equipment that typically needs a replacement every 5 years. And we run those tasers for 7 years, obviously testing them and making sure that we have safe equipment out there and trained officers. But we make things last. And that's another piece that I think, you walked through and you did your ride along and you saw, kind of behind the curtain of how we really operate. And we make it work and we make it last, and we will continue to do that. But we're seeing on the horizon over the next 10 years, there's a lot of equipment that is going to need to be replaced to continue to provide services the way that we do. And we just want to be as open and transparent about that as possible. That's why we're doing these forums.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chief Heavener. Not the last, but you got quite a bit of time still to monopolize this whole conversation. Talk to us. Tell us what's going on with fire and the millage. And I think you might even have something else exciting that you might want to share. I don't know.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to be on with you. So thank you so much for giving us the forum and the platform to talk about the millage and everything else that's going on in the community. Really, Chief Gray covered a lot of what's going on, but from a fire side of a perspective, we are constantly preparing day in and day out to be ready to answer the call from any resident here in Pittsfield for any emergency that may come up. As Chief Gray alluded to, large or small, but we really are kind of the go-to agency that answers the phone when somebody else doesn't know what to do or how to handle a situation that they find themselves in. Some of them are very tragic. Some of them are simple fixes. But the operation of running a fire service, fire EMS based service, is a costly one. And the reality is, kind of cutting right to the chase, is we do have our current millage, which provides 48% of our budget, expiring at the end of this year. And that is just the truth of the matter. So although, yes, we are asking for an increase, there is a renewal attached to that millage that ends at the end of this year. And I think the question that I get a lot is, it seems like we just did a millage so recently. And it feels that way because it was a 5-year millage. It was done at the end of the year. And a lot of people don't realize that that millage is expiring at the end of this year. So not only are we asking for that to be renewed plus one, we are doing so in a very responsible fashion with the utmost respect to people's finances. We understand that everybody has a cost burden here. But on the same token, the costs that we're dealing with on the fire service side of things is astronomical. And it's not uncommon for us to see anywhere from 46 to 51% increases on all of the things that we purchase on a regular basis. And when we're talking about large purchases like fire trucks or fire gear, fire equipment, which all have a shelf life, and it's not a nice to replace, it's a need to replace. The standards that are set forth by the National Fire Protection Agency kind of dictates to us when things should be coming off of the shelf so we can keep our firefighters, your firefighters, safe in the job that they do. Fighting fire is one of the most sporadic, erratic, and dangerous things that you can do as a profession. People are truly, from a very cold start, jumping to action to a very potentially dangerous situation. And the only way that we can mitigate that and keep our own people safe, your firefighters safe, and your community safe is by having the support of the community. And what we are really asking for the community to do is help us protect you. And that is, at the end of the day, what we do. We are here every day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, to provide protection for the community, educate the community, and respond to emergencies of any kind as they arise. So we don't have time necessarily when the alarm goes off to figure out a plan. We have to jump into action and already be prepared to answer the call for service. Just as a quick little example, a fire truck currently is costing right around $1 million these days. And that has skyrocketed over the last 5 years in a very significant fashion. And we have a plan laid out over the course of the millage to have to replace a large portion of the equipment that is very costly, a large portion of the fleet on a regular schedule that does cost quite a bit of money. As an example, the aerial tower truck that we have up at Station 2, which provides a very critical service to the community, both locally and as a mutual aid tool. To replace that vehicle is scheduled out at the end of this millage at almost $2.5 million, $2.4 some million. And that's a very large expenditure that we will have to prepare for, plan for, and start to set some money aside to do. Chief Gray talked a little bit about the mutual aid, and on the fire side, mutual aid is very important to the fire service. The standard response to fight a working house fire, we need to put somewhere between 17 or 18 firefighters on a working house fire to be able to handle that in a safe fashion based on today's standards. We typically only have 6 to 8 firefighters on duty per day at split between 3 stations. And that's common amongst all of the communities throughout Washtenaw County for the most part. So nobody really does have enough resources on duty every day to handle the problems that arise by themselves. So we do have these agreements in place with our neighboring agencies that when something is too large for us to handle, they will come help us. And likewise, we will go help them when they're faced with similar situations. So we really do spend a lot of time having different community partnerships built and region partnerships built as well. And that is that does not come at a cheap cost. So there's a lot of cross training that gets done between different agencies, and there's a lot of relationship and partnership building that we are constantly doing on a regular basis. As far as growth, I think the supervisor talked a little bit about the staffing levels in general of people. The national average is 1.16 firefighters per 1,000 people that live in a community. We currently operate between 0.6 and 0.7, so we are significantly under the national average. And I think what really makes the difference here in Pittsfield Township is we have a tremendous amount of prideful work that gets done by our police officers and firefighters every day. And they do that very selflessly. And they work as hard and as long as they can, and we need to make sure that we're putting them in a position to be able to give them that support. But we don't just work on emergency response, firefighting, emergency tragedies, or what have you. We do a lot of educational components, and I think maybe the thing that you might be talking about is actually sitting right behind me. If my desk wasn't blurred out, I could show you, but I have a pile of Carter kits in my office right now that was just delivered yesterday, actually. For anybody that's listening that don't understand or doesn't understand what a Carter kit is it's a simple tool like a duffel bag full of a bunch of different things in it that will help our firefighters and police officers communicate and deal with, in a very humanistic fashion, people that suffer or have autism disease. And we're going to be rolling out at the end of the month here some training for all of our staff. These kits are going to be going on all of our vehicles. And really what it's designed for is for us to be able to interact with somebody that has some kind of sensory related barrier. And we're trying to put tools in our folks' hands to be able to make sure that we can communicate with all aspects of the residents here in Pittsfield Township. And the kits are quite simple, but they are very meaningful at the same time. So if somebody has a visual trigger or an auditory trigger, there's earmuffs and sunglasses and a weighted blanket and cue cards, simple things like that can help us put somebody more at ease when we respond to an emergency. A very simple kit, but a very meaningful initiative. So appreciate your partnership too. I think we're going to do some work with a larger, I'm not sure if I'm able to use their name on your show here or not, but if I can.
You sure are.
All right. So I think we're going to be partnering up with Domino's, who's going to partner up with us on this initiative and be involved in providing some of this training. And we are super excited to get this rolled out. And yeah, it's an exciting thing that we do, but it's just an example of one initiative that we are currently partaking in. We're also looking at partnering up with other agencies throughout the county to further and better address the opioid epidemic and crisis that's going on throughout the country. But I think we have a unique position to where we can use our EMS trained staff to help better provide support and services to people that are suffering, not only just the person that has an opioid potentially crisis, but the family related to those folks too, because it's not just isolated with an individual. It is so far reaching out into the community, family members and friends. And I think we're uniquely positioned to be able to use some of that training throughout the fire service to be able to make a real difference in the community. But again, to be able to provide those opportunities, it does come at a cost, and it's a very worthy cost, and it's a much needed thing that the community is facing, and we potentially can provide some solution to that. And so we really are not asking for a wish list in this millage. We are asking for support of necessity throughout the millage. As you witnessed when we walked through the station together, it is truly a need that we are facing. As all of the gear that we will be replacing in the near future as well, like the turnout gear that we wear that protects us from fire, or our air packs that we wear that we breathe our air when we go into a fire or any kind of hazardous environment. Those things don't last forever, and they need to be replaced, and they get wear and tear, and they are at the end of their life expectancy. So those are things that we actively pursue for grant funding. We have been successful with grants in the past, but I think like everybody is aware of the environment that we currently live in today. We can't guarantee we're going to get those grants. When they come through, we will always participate in trying to secure money where we can, but we can't rely on it. And if we don't get a grant, that doesn't mean that the equipment doesn't need to be replaced. And so putting us in a position to be able to replace the necessary equipment to make sure that your firefighters and police officers are safe is truly a priority and a necessity. And that's really what we are trying to make sure that we're positioned to do.
So you mentioned at the two information sessions that I was able to pop in at that related to replacing our fire vehicles. It's not like we have options to sort of debate on pricing. There's a monopoly on who builds these vehicles. And so I think it's different than maybe like a police car where you've got multiple auto dealer, auto manufacturers that you could kind of pit against each other and say, well, I could, get this vehicle from, GM or Ford or Chrysler. You don't really have a choice.
So there's obviously multiple manufacturers that make equipment, but they are all pretty much in the same boat, and they are all pretty comparable in price. And one of the key components that I don't think that we've mentioned is the length of time that it takes to actually build a fire engine or a ladder truck. I just spoke to a cohort a couple days ago who ordered one of these same vehicles, one of our aerial ladder truck that we have up at Station 3. They just ordered one for their community. And the build time for that truck is 1,100 days. So not only do you have to be prepared financially, you have to forecast years in the future. And there are different manufacturers, but they're all customized type of manufactured products. So you are very limited. It's not like buying a vehicle and then outfitting it with lights and a siren. It's a much, much different. These are big, big vehicles, tens of thousands of pounds, and there are limited options that are out there. And every option that is out there is in the same boat. Very expensive, very increased in cost, and very long wait times to get access to even receiving a vehicle when one is needed. So you have to be prepared to plan way out into the future.
So we're talking 3.5 years to build a vehicle, right?
It seems crazy. It seems crazy, doesn't it?
Well, that's a lot. That's a long time. And I'm making an assumption that they're not starting this order without you having the money. That's not something that they're gonna, you won't do that, right?
Yeah, you definitely have to have a financial commitment and an ability to pay to be able to start the process. That's for sure. And it's not as simple as going to a car dealership and picking up a vehicle. It's definitely something that has to be very well planned out, and it's very unique equipment. Not every department is set up the same way. We have rural type of areas that we respond to, so we have to have specialized equipment to carry water. Not all areas of our community has fire hydrants, so we have to bring the water with us. And a lot of people take that for granted in some areas that have a hydrant in their front yard to where we can tap into that and take care of a fire if one occurs. But if we get into some of the areas that don't have fire hydrants, we have to carry a tank. We bring a tanker truck, and then we will rely on mutual aid to bring additional tanker trucks depending on the scale and the scope of what the emergency is. And we would then likewise reciprocate those relationships with other communities. But that's very specialized equipment that we just simply can't go without having. And again, just like that, just like a fire engine, that vehicle too does have a shelf life, and they do wear out much quicker than typical vehicles do. So one of the other questions that I get is why don't fire trucks last longer? Well, we typically try to get at least 15 years, if not 20 years out of a vehicle before we put it into a reserve status to where we kind of start slowing down its use. But there are standards that are in place that kind of dictate how long we can use those before we really are taking on a lot more liability for having a problem, something goes sideways that creates a safety hazard for the firefighters that are utilizing the vehicles. And there's a lot of things that go into calculating that out. But we make sure that we do a very good job maintaining our vehicles, and we do everything that we can to get as much length and time of their life expectancy out of the use as we can. But the reality is those two have a shelf life, and that clock is ticking from the time they get put in service.
Mhm.
So there's great expense revolving around making sure those vehicles meet the standards that are required.
You triggered something when you mentioned that, your vehicle, one of the vehicles needs to be able to carry water. And that is that I think a lot of us don't remember that Pittsfield Township is a rural urban municipality. We have rural areas that do not have fire hydrants, are not connected to yucca water. They're on wells. Farmers, I mean, which is what Pittsfield was, right? Before it became so developed. And so that's another thing that I just wanted to lift up for anyone that may be listening to this, is to remember that although the picture I think most of us have in our mind is that we're an urban, suburban community, we still have very large pieces that are not as connected that way, that are rural, that we still have to service. And I don't know that we always think about that. I will say me, because I'm living in, I'm not living in a rural area. And so it's not important to you when that's not your life experience. So I appreciate you sort of helping me lift that up. And then just a personal point of privilege. You shared with me the piece about the Carter bags when I was finishing up a meeting with Trish about a month ago, and you literally had me in tears in the office because, as you know, I have a family member that is on the spectrum, and we had visited with you and your staff at an annual event that you have last spring, and we talked about it. You've got a staff person that also has the same situation with a family member. And I walked away not expecting that there was going to be anything done about it. I didn't ask you to do it, but I did ask whether or not it was something that we had thought about. And so to see you in the office about a month ago, literally tell me that you had moved forward, that this is going to be something happening in our district, just it brought me to tears. And I literally came home and called someone that I know, Miss Washington at Domino's, and said, can we connect? Is there anything that we can do? Would Domino's be interested in being a part of this very exciting new opportunity for our public safety and for our residents? And they said yes. And so I'm thrilled about that. Any way that I can, better connect people, but just knowing that we're showing again that this is a community that cares, that listens to their residents, and that shows their residents, what are you getting for your money, right? People are more willing to pay for what they can actually see. Don't just give me the bill, tell me what am I getting? What's the itemized receipt look like? And so I just want to say thank you. I gave you a big bear hug in the office, but I just needed to say that again because it warmed my heart, and it helps I think put a perspective on why Pittsfield is such a special place to live. So I appreciate that. I didn't know if there was anything else that any of you would like to share with the constituents. while you have an opportunity.
hit on
This
it
won't
about-
be the only time that we'll talk. I expect that as long as I'm in office, I will continue to do these, communications for the benefit of our residents. But it allows us to reach people when they have time, right? So they're not they're recorded, but it allows people to be able to go out on the YouTube or to the county website and access and say, oh, okay, I want to hear about the drain commission, or I want to hear, well, what did Pittsfield Township administrators have to say?
I have to say, it's just, I appreciate we all appreciate your partnership. I know that whenever we've gone to you for an ask, it's not been a, just listen to it. It's been an action item for you. And we really appreciate that. And I think to speak to what you said about Pittsfield being a special place, this community, again, I chose to live here. I didn't grow up here. I was over in Plymouth Canton. I moved here and never left and raised my children here. And to speak, I know we talked a lot about public safety today, that millage, but our parks are just amazing places, especially during COVID. I think we all kind of felt that. And over the last, 15 years, maybe even more, the pathways that we've had, the connectivity to the parks and getting people out more, that's something that, it will need to be maintained. And so, to keep in mind that we have these beautiful parks, we have them all, we just want to make sure that 15 years from now, they look as good as they look today.
Yes.
Because I think it is a sense, I think when people say, at least in Washington County, about Pittsfield, I think one of the things that comes to mind is our parks. So, but we appreciate you having us on today to be able to talk about it, because we do kind of beam with pride about, the community. And that's part of the reason why I'm here. I love this community and want to make sure it just stays as wonderful as it is and grows even more.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I appreciate all three of you for joining me. I think this has been very helpful, very productive. It's chock full of information, and I'm saying yes to the millages.
Thank you for this opportunity.
Yeah, thank you so
Absolutely.
much.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we'll end this call, and I will revisit with you. We talked earlier. I've got a homework assignment I will walk away with. I'll start working on that today, and I'll get back with you. And I look forward to seeing you in the immediate future. I will say that today, just for our constituents, it is Wednesday, April 16th, and there is a Washington County Board of Commissioners meeting. Working session starts at 5:30, and then we have the general meeting at 7. We will be going into closed session, and I just say that as a reminder. Closed session means we don't know when we're coming back. So if they're sitting in the audience, they can't be mad if it takes an hour and a half or 2 or maybe 15 minutes. There's no way for us to predict. But as always, we welcome people to join us either by sending us an email communication, joining us virtually, and or being in person. So we will see you, the three of you. I will see you sooner than later. And for my public safety partners, be safe out there. And Trish, as always, you're a joy. And I'm glad that we are working together. And
Me too.
I see great things. So thank you all very much.